afternoon, everyone, and happy Monday. You have Alyssa Corum and Justin Nielsen here with a look at the stock market today. We're going to look at the action for the major indexes. A bit of a muted day, but off lows. So we'll talk about where we are in this overall market trend. And Justin, what are the couple of names that we're going to be highlighting today?
So despite being a very calm day, there were a couple of big moves in chip stock, Nvidia, that we've been watching for a while, and also Yeti, YETI. So those are two that had lots of movement on volume, but we'll also take a look at a setup in Bruker, BRKR.
All right, let's do that first. Here's a look at the NASDAQ. We'll also take a look at the S&P 500, the tech-heavy index closing down 0.4% for the day. Like I said, off-session lows, the Dow down about 0.2%, the S&P 500 roughly flat, down slightly. So nice to see that even though it was a down day, off of lows and an inside day.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the big thing here is, I mean, we had such a strong day on Friday. We had such a strong week last week. I mean, this was over a 3% move for the week on top of a 2% plus move the week before. So this is strong movement here, and it's completely normal for it to not go up every day. So you can't just look at one day and say, oh man, this market's terrible. This has been a very dramatic move off the bottom here. The Nasdaq has really kind of shown its strength again, and while a lot of that has been driven by some of the big heavyweights, there does seem to be other names out there that are looking interesting. There is this issue of lower volume, and you can see that in the index itself. There's been a pretty dramatic drop off in volume lately, and you're seeing that in a lot of the individual stocks, which makes some of those setups a little bit tough. But we are going to show some heavy volume breakouts and movements today. But right now, 14,000 is just around the corner. That could be an area where we hit some resistance, but we'll be looking for the Nasdaq to break through that area and potentially go higher. But pausing right here is very normal.
100%. And the S&P 500 holding at its highs, a really strong showing.
Yeah, and I mean the big thing here is we just don't want this to get overheated, right? It's it's at new highs. This has been where a lot of strength has been. We've been talking about the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average kind of carrying things, whereas the Nasdaq was lagging for a while, and now the Nasdaq is participating. We still have the Russell 2000, the small cap index, a little lackluster. Just hanging out by its 50-day moving average line, but it's not breaking down. So that's good. If we kind of get all of the indexes churning together, rowing on the same path, then that can really help with returns in the stocks.
Most definitely. And Nvidia was one of the standout names from 2020, that initial move off of the coronavirus crash lows, but it's been hanging out for a while. Really fell off of our radar as it just started trading sideways last summer. And then we saw that rotation into the semiconductor equipment names that have really been on fire. And now Nvidia with this huge move on its investor day, a lot of headlines coming out of that, and some announcements that clearly are exciting investors, because look at the volume behind today's move, Justin.
Yeah, and so this is something you just have to be aware when these investor days come about. Different conferences. Sometimes there's bank conferences, healthcare conferences, and there's always the potential for companies to make announcements, whether it's a partnerships. One of the things they announced was a partnership with Schrodinger, which is important for some drug delivery stuff. So and there's also announcements in terms of maybe new products. Sometimes there's guidance on sales or earnings. So there's all sorts of things that could come out from an investor day. So it's always a good idea to be aware of that, just like you would be aware that earnings are coming up on a particular company. So in this case, I haven't even gone through all the headlines. There were just, it seemed like it was headline after headline of things that, people were saying that were positive. You saw on the flip side, AMD was kind of taking a hit because some of these announcements were great for Nvidia, but AMD is like, is there going to be trouble for us? Investors were kind of shifting away as these two stocks sometimes will will trade punches with each other. Like I've got the better chip now, and then the next one comes out, and they're always leapfrogging each other. So Nvidia certainly excited investors today. You saw a lot of volume, a big move above 600. And while this was one that was maybe kind of off the radar, this is one we had such a good gain on in leaderboard. We actually kept part of the position in there from April, all the way from April, and held through. And that's just something that, if you're going to get a big gain on some of these stocks, you sometimes have to hold through some rough action. And we actually added to the position today. So you can find out more about that at Leaderboard product for subscribers.
So looking at the intraday chart here, I mean, you could clearly tell when those announcements started rolling in. Justin.
Well, and it wasn't just one.
Yeah, announcements plural.
Right.
Very, and this is why we're always looking for those game changers, the new. So because that can obviously have an impact on the fundamentals and just that technical action, that excitement behind these announcements. So if you weren't able to get to it in terms of adding that position, do you think it's too extended here at this point? Would you want to wait for some sort of pullback?
It does look a little extended here, but this is where you have to be careful. We talked on IBD Live today where I get a little nervous with these cut bases. If it goes straight through that cut base, that does feel extended to me. But sometimes when you have such a shift in earnings or in news, they can go and not look back. So that's just one of those things you have to maybe balance out your risk. So how far would you be willing to let this go if you entered here? How much are you below, above the 50-day moving average line? So if you use that as a line in the sand, and if the risk level is okay, then you can still maybe take a flyer on it and be okay. If it pauses here, then that might give you another opportunity if it kind of creates a handle here. But right now, I'm not sure, given this volume, that this is going to have a handle. And I also have to give credit to Ed Carson, because even on his day off, that man still sends emails, and he put this on my radar as soon as that started moving with the announcements.
Ed, well, kudos to Ed. I don't know if you're listening, Ed, but no, on your day off. Anyway, good stuff. All right. Well, next on our list, let's take a look at Yeti, which we've been following closely. It was our stock of the day last Tuesday as it was setting up, clearing this early entry here at 76.87 and continuing higher through the end of the week, and really putting an exclamation point, it seems like, today, up almost 7%, heavy volume, officially breaking out of this consolidation, Justin.
Yeah, and so one of the points that I did want to make on this one is that we did have this as stock of the day earlier. And while the close wasn't great that day, it didn't break down. It didn't have any rules that it was breaking.
Right.
So I actually purchased some shares myself that day. Again, we were talking about it on IBD Live. We had it as stock of the day. And so this is where sometimes you have to give these things some room and not be too impatient. Like, okay, it didn't close well today, but if it didn't break any rules, if it didn't trigger any sell signals, you can sometimes give that some room. And again, this is one where if you look at the pattern of volume lately, there have been these big spikes, and that's something to, I think, that's noteworthy, especially in this low volume environment for so many stocks. So this is a strong breakout above that 80 level. Again, you had the earlier potential entry that you mentioned, and so if you got that early entry, if you had a smaller position, now you can kind of bring it up to a fuller position, a more full size position, or you can add to this as you have cushion. You can put some more money to work in this winter.
Yeti looking mighty good here, and BRKR is another stock that we want to put on the audience's radar, because taking a look at this weekly chart here, that relative strength line is really perking up.
Yeah, so one of the things we look at a lot of times, and Chris Gessel has been really hot on this during IBD Live, is that blue dot screen in MarketSmith. So you go to MarketSmith and you go to that RS line, blue dot, you get a lot of ideas. This is where that came from today. So BRKR has that blue dot. It's got this nice cup base. So today's action, looks exactly like what you'd want to see in terms of nice, calm, potential handle forming as it's just kind of flattened out. So the fact that this doesn't have much volume right now is actually not a bad thing. You like to see the volume dry up in a handle a lot of times. And so if this can just kind of go sideways, maybe even drift lower a little bit here, that would be
Shake some
a
more
good setup.
people out.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it usually happens on weaker volume because it's weaker holders. And then if you can see that volume come in very strongly, but the thing that really, again, jumps out on this is even before this has gotten into new high ground, that relative strength line already popped into new high ground. And so when a stock is able to do that, that's something that's really worth watching, especially because this is comparing, that relative strength line is comparing it to the S&P 500, the stock to the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 has been so strong. So when you have a stock that's, again, outperforming the S&P 500 when it's strong, before it gets to new highs, that's something I think that's worth noting.
Most definitely. Our research shows that these stocks often have even bigger moves, that they have the leadership qualities that you want in a stock that's in your portfolio for more than just a short time. But we'll have to see how it shakes out for Bruker, BRKR, but we'll keep tabs on that.
And most
one,
importantly,
no doubt.
that relative strength does put things on your radar. It's a great place to look, a great pond to look in.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have more insights for you tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So make sure you watch investors.com/IBD Live. We'll see you there tomorrow.